You have probably seen the videos. Stop eating sugar and lose 20 pounds. Stop eating sugar and feel amazing. Stop eating sugar and transform your body. But here's the question nobody is asking. What actually happens to your brain when you stop eating sugar after 60? Because the answer is very different from what happens in a 35-year-old body. And the research on this is more recent and more surprising than most people realize. Today I'm going to break down exactly what the science says about sugar and the aging brain, including one finding that completely changes how you should think about sugar substitutes after 60. It is not what most people expect. Here's why this topic matters so much for people specifically over 60. The brain is the most energy-hungry organ in your body. It represents about 2% of your body weight, but consumes roughly 20% of your daily energy. And the primary fuel it runs on is glucose, which is what sugar breaks down into in your bloodstream. So you might think, if glucose is brain fuel, wouldn't cutting sugar hurt your brain? That is exactly the right question. And the answer is more nuanced than almost anything you will hear on YouTube about sugar. As always, nothing in this video is medical advice. Please consult your physician or registered dietitian before making significant changes to your diet. What this video will do is give you the research, clearly explained, so you can have a much more informed conversation with your doctor. Let us start with what happens to the brain when you consume too much sugar, because this is the foundation of everything else. When you eat excess added sugar consistently over months and years, your body begins to develop something called insulin resistance. You have probably heard of insulin resistance in the context of type 2 diabetes. But what most people do not know is that insulin resistance can also develop specifically in the brain, independently of what is happening in the rest of your body. Researchers now have a name for this. They call it brain insulin resistance. And a major 2024 review published in the journal Aging and Disease confirmed that brain insulin resistance is present in the aging brain, even in people who do not have diabetes, and that it is directly linked to cognitive decline. Here is what brain insulin resistance actually means. The brain's neurons need insulin to function properly, to form memories, to consolidate learning, to clear the toxic proteins linked to Alzheimer's disease. When the brain becomes insulin resistant, those processes become impaired. The neurons stop responding to insulin signals the way they should. Some researchers now refer to Alzheimer's disease as type 3 diabetes, because the pattern of brain insulin resistance found in Alzheimer's patients is so consistent and so specific that it suggests a direct metabolic pathway between chronic high sugar consumption and the development of the disease over time. The second mechanism is inflammation, and this one is especially relevant after 60. A 2025 study published in the Annals of Medicine found that high-sugar diets directly contribute to neuroinflammation, inflammation inside the brain itself, through the production of compounds called advanced glycation end products, or AGES. These compounds form when sugar molecules bind to proteins in the body, and they promote oxidative stress and inflammatory signaling throughout the brain. Neurologist Dr. Uma Naidu, who has written extensively on diet and brain health, has stated directly that a diet high in added sugars is associated with impaired cognitive function and increased risk of neurodegenerative diseases. Chronic high sugar intake promotes inflammation, oxidative stress, and insulin resistance in the brain, all of which negatively affect memory and learning over time. After 60, this matters more. The aging brain is already more vulnerable to inflammatory damage. The brain's natural anti-inflammatory defenses become less efficient with AGE, which means the same amount of dietary sugar that caused minor inflammation in your 40s may cause significantly more neuroinflammation in your 60s and 70s. So what actually happens when you reduce added sugar after 60? Here's what the research describes. Within the first 1 to 2 weeks, most people experience something that feels counterintuitive. A temporary increase in brain fog, irritability, and low mood. This is real and it is physiological. Sugar activates the brain's dopamine reward system, the same pathway involved in addiction. When that signal is suddenly removed, the brain goes through a genuine adjustment period. This is not a sign something is wrong. It is a sign the reduction is working. By weeks 3 to 4, most people report a meaningful improvement in mental clarity. The brain fog that many older adults have come to accept as simply part of aging begins to lift. Energy levels become more stable, no longer tied to the spike and crash cycle of high sugar intake. Mood improves as brain inflammation begins to reduce. Over the following months, as brain insulin sensitivity begins to improve, the brain's ability to use glucose as fuel actually becomes more efficient. The neurons that were partially impaired by insulin resistance begin responding more reliably to insulin signals. Memory consolidation and learning capacity improve. And critically, the reduction in neuroinflammation that comes with lower sugar intake directly supports the brain's ability to clear amyloid during sleep. Remember the rinse cycle Dr. Tanzi described in our last brain health video, the nightly process of flushing toxic proteins from the brain. That process works far more efficiently in a brain that is not chronically inflamed. Before we get to the part about sugar substitutes, and this is the part that surprises most people, I want you to think about one thing, not how much sugar you eat, how much sugar you drink, because the research consistently shows that liquid sugar in sodas, fruit juices, sweetened coffees, enters the bloodstream significantly faster than solid sugar and produces a more rapid insulin spike with less satiety signal. Liquid sugar is where most people over 60 are getting far more than they realize. Now here's the finding that changes everything, and it directly affects anyone over 60 who has switched to diet drinks or sugar-free products thinking they are making a safer choice. A major study published in September 2025 in Neurology, one of the most prestigious neurology journals in the world, followed over 12,000 adults for 8 years and examined the relationship between artificial sweetener consumption and cognitive decline. The researchers found that people consuming the highest amounts of artificial sweeteners experienced significantly faster cognitive decline than those consuming the least. The effect was 62% more rapid, equal to approximately 1.6 years of additional brain aging. Here's the critically important nuance for this audience, and this is the part most coverage of this study missed. When researchers broke down the results by age, they found that the link between artificial sweeteners and cognitive decline was significant in people under 60. In people over 60, which is most of the Reclaim 60 audience, the link was not statistically significant. So what does this mean? It means the artificial sweetener risk appears to be a midlife concern, not a direct risk for most people already in their 60s and beyond. However, the study authors specifically noted that reducing intake of conventional sugar, given its well-established risks for brain and metabolic health, should remain the priority for all age groups. The practical conclusion is clear. Reducing actual added sugar is the evidence-based priority for brain health after 60, and the research does not support the idea that switching to artificial sweeteners is the safer alternative, particularly for people under 60 in your family. Let us bring this together into something you can actually implement. Action Step 1. Identify your 3 biggest sources of added sugar and cut them in half. Not all at once. Not cold turkey. Just identify the 3 biggest contributors in your daily diet: the sweetened coffee, the afternoon snack, the dessert habit, and reduce each one by half. This is enough to meaningfully reduce the insulin spike pattern without triggering the full withdrawal reaction. Action Step 2. Replace liquid sugar first. If you drink any sweetened beverages, sodas, juices, sweet tea, sweetened coffee, this is the single highest leverage dietary change available to you. Replace 1 sweetened drink per day with water, sparkling water, or unsweetened tea. The brain benefits of this one change alone are significant because of how rapidly liquid sugar enters the bloodstream and spikes insulin. Action Step 3. Check the research links in the description below this video. Every source cited today is linked there. From the Brain Insulin Resistance Review to the 2025 High Sugar Diet and CNS Disorders Study to the Neurology Artificial Sweeteners Research. These are the actual studies, not summaries, so you can read the original findings and bring them to your next appointment if this is relevant to your health situation. Your brain after 60 is not fixed. It responds to what you feed it, and reducing the one dietary factor most consistently linked to brain inflammation and insulin resistance is one of the most direct and evidence-based things you can do for cognitive health right now. If this video helped you, please share it with one person over 60 who drinks diet soda every day, thinking it is the safe choice. The nuance in this research is exactly the kind of thing that changes behavior. Subscribe to Reclaim 60 for more evidence-based brain health and senior wellness content every week, everything grounded in real research and explained in plain English. And leave a comment below. Just one word describing what your biggest source of added sugar is right now. Coffee, soda, dessert. Just one word. I'll see you in the next one.